On today's call, I want to talk about what I would consider the next game changer for the form space, our new layout engine. Well, as many are aware of, complex forms can be a little tricky when trying to build a pixel perfect form without compromising the user's data entry experience, or on the other end of that, the PDF output. And I thought that it would be a good idea to share our inner workings and thought process to this layout engine. And with some of our most senior developers working on Joyfill's overall mission to create better form experiences and dev tooling, the new layout engine is a core piece to this new, flexible, improved form standard. But what does this new layout engine mean for product teams, right? So before we dive into some of the deeper questions, let's first start off with high level. What is the new layout engine exactly?
So the new layout engine is mainly focused on allowing you to create the visual experience that you're trying to achieve when it comes to forms. There's lots of variations of the visual layouts. You can think of something like a fillable PDF to Typeform to Google Form. They're all forms at the end of the day, but they deliver very different visual experiences and flows as you're kind of progressing through the form and filling out the information. So it's mainly focused around allowing it to be flexible enough so that you can configure it or present it in a way that you actually want.
Being you kind of headed this solution based on the hundreds of calls we've done with product teams and in their journey to solve forms inside of their own application, what were the limitations that led to the decision that a new layout standard was worth building for the world?
I think more than anything, it's not so much that it's a limit, but a desire to deliver a type of form that their users are expecting. So for instance, it started with, we built a form coming from an industry where we call it internal forms. I would say internal forms are mainly focused around the idea of paper-based workflows that people used to walk into a building and it was a clipboard. That was the origination of where the form started. So it's very paper-esque in its nature. Well, what ended up happening is as we got into more industries, this is something that should have been obvious to us, but it just wasn't. For whatever reason, it didn't spark. When we went and talked to a product team that was building, let's say, a solution around market research, they were more interested in almost like a type form based experience, single presentation of a question, very conditional in its flow. It was a very controlled experience, very minimal presentation of questions, because if somebody goes and lands on a form and they see there's 500 questions, they're going to be like, oh crap, I'm not doing this. But if you hide it behind just one question at a time, maybe they'll progress 30% of the way through the form and then they get tired and bounce, but you still collected a lot of information. So you're very much controlling the experience. And so what ended up happening is a form was not a form. The way that the data was collected and how it was presented was almost just as important, if not even more important, than the fact that I could put a text field on there or a drop down or a multi-selector to add an image. So the other side of that is, let's go if you're building a CRM or sales software. Well, you're building mostly landing pages to capture leads. Well, those are very simple, but mostly designed around being very brand focused and on brand for the person that's embedding that lead into their website. And it can't be a full page form either. Likely it's a very small sidebar that's embedded on or a little small side area that's embedded on somebody's website. So that being able to look like it's part of the actual website in terms of themes and colors styles, if you added custom styles or things like that to your website, it looks native and like it was built directly on the site. And it's very minimal and very simple. But it has blockers like maybe certain amounts of revenue that you need to be at before you can submit a lead, or there's kind of qualifying questions that if you're the CEO versus the head of product, maybe they want to present different questions, but still very minimal forms. But what I'm trying to highlight is the fact of the visual requirement that was required as you went into the different environments where the forms are being used. It didn't matter if you could collect the text field. You're collecting the same kind of text, whether you're on a lead page, a landing or a lead page, a survey form, or an internal form, or a fillable PDF, right? It's all text at the end of the day. But how it's presented and how it can look and feel when it's being filled out was the main light bulb that went off when we were thinking about this new layout engine. It's almost like a design experience engine. It's kind of like a UX engine, even a lot more than even just a layout engine. I don't know if that's clear enough, but that's really what sparked a why we're like, oh crap, the visual is just as important as the actual data collection portion of the form.
Mm-hmm. We like to refer to it as, and you use this term a lot, is it's a form, but with this new layout engine and the flexibility that it unlocks, it almost becomes like a data collection interface, right? That's put within the confinements of any area, to where it could be used for any possibility, not just your standard, like you mentioned earlier, an 8x11 document that we all know as being a form, or like a PDF, but really, what if there's a different canvas that you need to place fields that you need to collect data on, or display them? So that is cool to see that this will really, I just wanted to also piggyback on that, say it highlights or unlocks that flexibility. So,
Yeah,
okay,
for sure. That's the
very
goal.
cool. Okay, so kind of moving on to people watching this, can you share strong suggestions, time savers, or any even warnings to a developer or a product team who is in a early research and planning phase of building a form solution inside their application? Being that we've been through this many times already, is there any tips that you can provide?
Yeah, everything I discussed is almost the challenge of Joyfill for what we're building. It's not necessarily the challenge that they're going to face when they're building a solution for their product, unless they're covering multiple use cases. And we've seen that before, that somebody comes to Joyfill and they really need it for three separate things, even though they're kind of parallel. But we'll simplify it greater than that. If I was building in-house a solution, what I would be doing is I would first understand what are the most popular form tools that my customer base already uses. So similar to your industry, are the people you're building this feature for because of the area your product is, or are they most commonly using Typeform or Jotform or Google Forms or some internal form tool like Go Forms or Pronto Forms? I think Pronto Forms changed their name. Like, what are you building and what are your customers already using? That's going to inform a lot about the visual expectation or functional expectation for your user base. We have to build all those different scenarios at Joyfill because we sell to all sorts of different SaaS companies that target different SaaS markets or different user bases. So we have to be really flexible. But again, if you don't have to do that and you only have one main category of customers, go figure out what is the most popular tool your customers are already using that's generally adopted, and they use that as your model for what you're building in-house.
Right, and what style that form is. Like you
100%.
mentioned,
Yeah.
are they filling out a PDF that they got to
Yes.
generate data into? Do they just want to do like a questionnaire where they could get away with doing a one field per page type flow? All those really fall under the category of forms, but they come in different shapes and sizes. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. And so Anything else on that? I think you kind of gave a good starting point. As a recap, find out what your users are needing these forms for. How will they be completing them? And then obviously find a solution that helps you deliver that to those users.
Use it as your model, because forms is not a new idea. So if you can find the person that's already leading, you're going to learn so much just by that dedicated form tool on feature sets they've built. Because this is something we've talked about, but it's going to happen to them too, is that when your customers come to you, they might tell you form, but they have an image of what that form is in their brain. So if you're offering a fillable PDF form, which technically is a form, and they're coming from the world of 95% of the time people are using Typeform, they're gonna be, what the heck is this thing? And so you're really trying to match the mental model of form, just like when I say a car. Well, not every car is the exact same, right? Every car allows you to go somewhere, just like a form allows you to collect data. But the size, the look, the type of engine, the color, the interior, it all varies differently, and everybody's going to have this preconceived idea of what they're coming for. So just understand what your customers' preconceived idea of a form is based on the market you're going after. We just like that analogy because it's really simple, or I like it because it's really simple and it's just true. And that was something, even working in forms for as many years as we did, I did not actually realize. When you say a form, you think, oh, I used Google Forms, so I'm thinking Google Forms. Well, you talk to somebody else in there's forms and they use an entirely different tool, and it's got kind of its own nuanced functionality and look and feel, and you're like, oh, wow. So anyways, that's just something really important to keep in mind.
That's awesome. And then a little last bonus question. Why the name Project Thanos?
So anybody that watches Marvel, we're narrowing it down, but there are the essentially the oh, what do they call the stones?
Soul Stones?
The soul stones. So there's all these different soul stones that he had to complete on his this glove thing, and in order to essentially have the full power of the glove. Well, inside of Joyfill, we have broken it down into what's funny enough, kind of core form experience types. And there's many subcategories over that, but the parents really exist. So our idea of these core form experiences are essentially those soul stones. And if we can master the experience at the top level of each one of those core experiences, then we believe it unleashes Joyfill's power to really kind of like conquer the universe of forms, essentially. Sounds funny, but that's kind of how I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and I believe there's five different form categories, which is one for each knuckle.
Yep.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Again, thanks for sharing some insider information about this exciting new layout engine. But until next time,
Yeah.
see ya.
Peace.